Well, good afternoon. Good afternoon and welcome to another of our webinar Wednesdays hosted by the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center. Good afternoon, I'm Kelly Bearden. I'll be the host and moderator today as we move into number 108 of Managing Your Small Business Beyond the Pandemic webinar series. Many of you know we started this back on the 20th of March, I believe, in 2020. With the first round of the pandemic relief, and have been going ever since, every Wednesday live since March of 2020. So here we go all the way up to April 6th, 2022 with number 108. Got some great guests today. Really looking forward to a great discussion on really, as recovery goes on for small businesses, who could be a great customer for you. And the customer could be your federal, state, and even local governments. And so today, couple of great speakers to tell you how you can get started in that area and some of the areas where money is available and how we can work all together and try to make it a better place. Coming up, give you a little heads up about what's coming up. Next week, we have Claudia Newcorn back. Claudia was with us a little over a year ago and did some great marketing and business recovery marketing strategies and successes. So Claudia is going to come back and join us next week. April 20th, we do our one monthly show where we do not have a guest. You are forced to see an hour of me, and we will do deep dive on all the topics that I cover today in about 15 to 20 minutes. And then on April 27th, with us will be Bill Britton, and Bill is with the IT department at Cal Poly, and he will be doing a great presentation on cybersecurity. Really one of the huge issues facing small businesses on a national level here in the US is cybersecurity. So join us on the 27th for more information on cybersecurity. So what's happening today, April the 6th, 2022? Well, beyond it being what would have been the 117th celebration of the birth of my granddad, we see that the Senate is about ready to move about $10 billion from SBA to COVID preparedness. I don't know if that compares with granddad's birthday, but you know, the Senate is about ready. They came out on Monday and said that they had reached a bipartisan agreement to actually get some more funds for COVID preparedness, for vaccines there and other therapeutic actual medical treatments that might be necessary, and supplies such as masks. So $10 billion, and we'll get into a little bit about that. Our California Dream Fund continues to accept applications, and when we do our deep dive on the 20th coming up in 2 weeks, we will have a considerable amount of time that we spend on that. That'll be about the timeline when this thing's really coming together in the Central California region, and we will actually get a deeper dive and maybe some live look-ins and other things on the California Dream Fund. But until then, what you need to do is you need to send an email of interest if you are interested in the program, and send it to casbdc@ucmerced.edu. If you didn't get that, don't worry, we'll bring that up in a moment or two. Our Kern micro grant program that is funded from the California Office of the Small Business is proceeding along. I believe we're anticipating at the end of this week having about 100 applications that are at the county approved and waiting for funding. So the funds came in from the state of California just recently. And so a lot of those applications, I believe 394, we can actually fund. We're about up to 100. So you'll be hearing more about that particular program. We mentioned we're going to be talking a lot about government, being a government customer, having the customer as one of your, the government as one of your customers, and actually a little B2B from a customer government perspective. That sounds confusing. It won't be though, because we have two great experts that are going to talk about it. And we're going to talk a little bit about doing business with Caltrans. We also found out this week that the SBA's two most popular loan programs, the SBA 7A, their guarantee loan program, kind of the bellwether program for businesses that are looking to start or grow that do not require a lot of assets. And the SBA 504 loan programs done by our friends at Midstate Development and very asset driven. Both of these two main pillars of SBA lending are seeing an increase in funds for this year. Seeing a lot of demand, and on Monday also, I believe I found out that More funds are coming for both the SBA and also the 504 program for this year. So that's good news. When we talk about our Senate $10 billion, it's coming from, some of those funds are going to be coming from EIDL. So is this really the last chance for increases and reconsideration? So if you want your EIDL increase and you want to try to get additional EIDL funds to your EIDL grant, EIDL loan, if you have an EIDL loan already where you have done the paperwork and have the loan agreement and authorization, and you would feel that you need an increase for your business, you still have time to seek an increase. And also if you were turned down, there's still time to seek reconsideration. We've talked a lot the last few weeks about the state small business credit initiative. And what that is it's a program coming out of the state of California's Office of Treasury that is actually coming from the US Treasury for certain small business funding programs. Some of these are going to be equity-based, and some of them are also going to be for very small businesses defined as 10 employees and less. So some capital access that might be available in those areas. We'll update all of our outstanding open pandemic programs, at least the ones that are left. And as always, we'll take your questions and also a poll. So our poll question today is going to be very much, I'm the minimalist poll question guy today. Very minimal poll questions, very simple to the point. I'm going to launch them. And the first question is going to be, I have previously done business with the government, yes or no? And if it's no, I think I might want to sometime. So do you do business right now with either the local, state, federal government, school boards, anything? And is there a chance you might want to? So yes or no on those. You know, I think we have one of our guest speakers, Mr. Hightower, who has gone that route to where previously very little doing business with the government, but we'll have to ask in order to now change that business, to change it to a business that does considerable amounts. So we do have 58% of you voting. I'm going to give you one last chance to get in. And very simply, have you done business previously with the government? So do you do any selling or procurement with state, local, federal governments? Yes or no? And if it's no, well, do you want to? Okay, well, we do have 62% of you in, and I'm going to end this poll right now. In the poll with 66% of you in, and share the results, and we're right at 75-25. 75% of you presently do not do business with the government, but of those no's, those 75%, 63% of you are interested in doing business at some time. So that's good to hear. So about a quarter of you are federal, state, or government contractors, and about 2/3 of you would like to at least look at that option. So that's great to know. Thank you very much for doing that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is basically close up that poll and move right along. So a lot of our status and updates for some of the key relief programs that are out there is we've mentioned a little bit about the California Relief Fund. There is the email address that you need, and just email and say you are interested in the training, business plan preparation, the one-on-one advising, and ultimately a shot at the free grant money through the state of California. Also, our Kern County Micro Grant Program is open, and it has time and it has money. So I think that there's going to be plenty of time. And really, I encourage a lot of you that are not micro businesses. And micro businesses are those in 2019 that had less than $50,000 in revenue. If you know a business, please pass this information on to them if they were a micro business in 2019. Really kind of is how this program is really getting out. A lot of those individuals are not on this webinar. A lot of micro businesses are not. So it's really all of us that need to get that information out to our smallest, neediest, and most vulnerable small businesses. In Mono County, which is, of course, one of the 3 counties served by the CSU Bakersfield Small Business Development Center in Mono, in addition to Kern. The Mono Grant Program is open, and it's a forgivable loan program. You're going to want to talk to one of the 2 Jeffs, Jeff Simpson in Mono County, and he will refer you to Jeff Lucas, who is their contractor who is working on this particular program. There are funds available, and it's a little bit of work. This is a program that is going to require quite a bit of substantiation, but the Jeffs can help you get there. The EIDL loan is open still for increases and reconsideration. I throw that question mark at the earlier, and I'm going to probably add it to this one by next week, because we really don't know how much EIDL is going to be left after funds are taken from this particular program for the COVID-19 moving forward. $10 billion we talked about. The employee retention credit is open. It is open, and you can actually still go back and either amend if you had wages that qualified for 2021 for the third quarter ended 9/30. So it was open basically for about a year from the fourth quarter of 2020 through the third quarter of 2021. Really good place to start that during tax season is to maybe mention that to your accountant or tax professional who, if you have employees and think you might be able to qualify for that. The City of Bakersfield has their Restart Loan to Grant program. You're going to want to contact Access Plus Capital or the Kern Women's Business Center. Also, we'll talk briefly about the State Small Business Credit Initiative. We think we're seeing loans and venture, but some of that money is also being removed for the COVID funds. So we'll have to wait and see how much of that program is reduced. We'll make our guess today real quickly. California Relief Grant Program through Lindustry. If you did qualify or did actually apply for that, it's amazing. We're still seeing individuals get funded. So whereas the program for applying for that program ended months ago, still you want to check your email if you were never funded and check with lindustry.com, or even give them a call if you applied and never received funding through that, and just say, hey, I've never received funding, because they are still funding small businesses. So the PPP forgiveness, we are actually still seeing one or two individuals that are still past their end of their covered period, starting to pay on that and need to get it forgiven in order for it to go away like a grant. And did attend a small business entrepreneurship Senate committee where Senator Ben Cardin, who chairs that committee, hopes that there will be more funds for restaurant revitalization, even though it wasn't in the last bill. So what happened with the Senate bill for $10 billion, and what does COVID really look like on August or April the 6th? Well, funds are available. These funds are going to be used for future vaccines and also for therapeutics, is what it says. The administration previously wanted about 23.5. In a bipartisan world, the Senate Republicans countered with about 15 billion. To get this done, we needed both parties to agree, actually with 10 Republicans coming over to join the Democrats. Senate Republicans offered $15 billion from previously issued funds from COVID that went to benefit the states that had not been used. The Democrats settled for $10 billion, and most of these funds are repurposed SBA funds from earlier stimulus programs. And I guess that's what bipartisan looks like, a bipartisan deal looks like in 2022. So the repurposed SBA funds are going to be those from the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant program that we featured for months on this particular program and talked about some of the challenges. Well, there are Shuttered Venue Operator Grants funds that are available. We did have some of our attendees to this webinar and some of our clients at the SBDC and some of our clients throughout the Central California region receive the Shuttered Venue Operators Grant. But there are funds available, and those funds apparently aren't going to be used, so they're going to be repurposed here. Also, there still remains a question amount. I don't know exactly how much of economic injury disaster loan money. So we're really, really pushing if you're in that last stage of wanting to either do a reconsideration where you might have been previously denied, or if you would like to request additional funds, it's now or never. Transportation Aviation Manufacturing Jobs Program that was available to the airlines really didn't get any play here on Webinar Wednesday. It was mostly for the larger air carriers and those in aviation manufacturing. Also taking funds or losing funds is going to be Higher Education Relief Fund, and also the state, as we mentioned, the State Credit Initiative. And so with that state Small Business Credit Initiative. In California, we are projecting still $1.18 billion that's going to go to small business lending programs. One thing that came out on recently, there was a separate application that went to the US Treasury for these two items, the Very Small Business Program and the SBDI, which both benefit small employers, obviously, number 10 and under for the Very Small Business Loan Program. So here's about $250 million, and I'm hoping that that isn't the part that is going back. I'm hoping it was either other states that didn't want to use the program, because all states had the option to apply for these funds. In California, this is what it ends up looking like. So we'll have to wait and see, and hopefully get somebody on from the Treasury's office in Sacramento and talk a little bit more about what is going to happen and if there are going to be any cuts here in California. But this program should be coming online in just literally a few months at the latest. So, in the CARES Act, there was $14 billion for emergency aid for our higher education students. And so at CSUB, I know there was funds to help students get through that very difficult time of when they were trying to go to school and trying to do it remotely and through other reliefs. I am not sure if this is the fund that was actually, it could be some other relief fund, but there have been some funds that have not been spent in this particular program, and those are being resourced and repurposed for this $10 billion moving forward for COVID money. So there's the manufacturing program. It was part of the American Rescue Plan. So it was our most recent stimulus package. And then also the EIDL program, which the EIDL program recently came out and said you have 30-month deferment for all COVID EIDLs, 2021 and 22. And also after that deferment period ends, you'll be making regular and principal and interest payments. So if you already established a pre-authorized debit or reoccurring loan payments on your EIDL, the deferment does not stop them. You need to contact SBA, and it could result in a actual balloon payment at the end. The DREAM Fund is $35 million through the state of California to seed entrepreneurship and small business creation in underserved communities. Again, it consists of a training, business plan, and consulting. We are one of the contractors here in the Central California region here at CSU Bakersfield. And also, the grants will be $5,000 to $10,000 for new starts. There again is the email. Just send a response there, giving your name and contact information, and you are interested in participating in the training, business plan, technical assistance. And hopefully you will get some of the training funds when it goes to the lendistry.com portal when that program comes along. Again, the Kern County Micro Grant Program is still open, and you can call our office at 661-654-2856 for more details. Okay, moving on now. It's a great honor to bring in two great speakers. And first, we're going to bring in Troy Hightower, and he is a principal after forming TDH Associates International in 1986. He remained employed for a number of years, including retiring from the Council of Governments, or KernCog, in 2015 as a regional transportation planner. Has over 30 years experience with GIS, land use, economic development, really a transportation expert, and really somebody who I like to lean on when I want to talk about some of the rail projects and some of the other projects that are happening in transportation. And it's all those years, I guess, at KernCog. He has the equivalent of a Master's of Science in International Engineering from the Marseille Polytechnique University in France. He is fluent in French and has been a pilot for over 40 years. Troy, it's great to have you join us today. I'm going to stop the share and bring you in and answer you some questions, and welcome.
Glad to be here.
Okay, great. So Troy, we've known each other for 4 or 5 years. Maureen just remembered, our executive producer, Maureen, that you were featured in a Kern Business Journal article back about 4 or 5 years ago when you started using drones in your business. And apparently it's worked out fine based on where you've gone also since that point. But could you tell us a little bit about your business and why you wanted to get into government contracting?
Sure, be happy to. And I should thank Maureen. She really was helpful in that effort. And we do still do the drones. The main reason that we got involved with government related projects is because the projects we work on are typically funded by government agencies. So that's why we really started going into the government work. But we've since gone from providing services like the GIS mapping and the drones and others to more project management now. We do more project management and coordination and collaboration.
So what are the challenges you faced really doing, it sounds like a substantial amount or most of your work with government. What are some of the challenges that you faced?
Well, from the beginning, it was access to capital. That was a challenge without having the, proven cash flow. So as the business grew and the cash flow came, that became less of a problem. Another thing is, when COVID came, fortunately, most of our contracts were in place before COVID. And so we weren't hurt too bad. But in order to get a lot of these rescue programs, you had to demonstrate that your income went down and ours didn't. So we weren't able to participate in many of that funding. So that's been a challenge. Now our current challenge is expanding and doing that, in a reasonable way and hiring on more people, good people. That's a challenge.
So you mentioned your access to capital. I believe one of the vehicles that you used, I think, is just an incredible tool for anybody who needs really an incredible resource, is a line of credit for doing business with the government. I know at least our share of government here is not really quick sometimes in making payments, either on a local basis, potentially a state basis, whatever. That's been a good resource to have, correct?
I'd say that's essential because you may get a government contract and go to work and you may not see a check for 3 months, 4 months. And so, we were fortunate enough to get a small line of credit that allowed us to get going. But that's since increased. So now as we get more contracts and we have to wait for these payments, we have a payment that's coming in, supposed to come in this week, that goes all the way back to July of last year. So that's the line of credit has allowed us to operate.
So Troy, what opportunities do you see ahead for your firm with contracting with the government?
I see a lot of opportunities. Some of these contracts we have are either being extended or expanded. We're seeing more similar type contracts coming out, similar type work that we can contract in. The other is the more regional. So we're doing more in Fresno and more in Bakersfield.
Okay, great. Well, what I want to share is, I want to share with everybody a little thing called your capability statement. And so I got your capability statement up. I believe everybody can see that. So Troy, tell us a little bit about your capability statement, how it describes what you do with your business, the areas that you want to work in, the projects, and just a lot about how important a capability statement has been for you in getting government work.
I'd be happy to. And I should say that the reason I have this capability statement is because of SBDC. They're the ones that recommended that I do one. Erica Baltazar was very helpful on how to format the capability statement, what kind of information needs to be on there. And so the way this works, it has worked for us, is when we want to get certified with companies, a lot of companies have their own government agency, each have their own bidding system. And so this statement, you can send it to them. It has all the information that they need to get you in their system. So we were able to use this to get onto the SAM system, which is the federal service, and then as well as Cal eProcure. And we've gotten contracts out of those agencies, services. Some of the things on the left, the codes, those are very important to know your codes. And we were certified under those codes that show that we can do that work. Because what typically happens is they issue RFPs based on these codes. And that's how they can match you up with opportunities. So that's very important. The certifications, we have SB and DBE certification. That's been very helpful. And in recent years, the state government agencies, they're really following. You're certified if you're on a project and you're listed as one of the certified subs or disadvantaged subs. In the past, the prime contractors may or may not treat you so well, especially when it comes time to get, payment on what you provide. Well, now, the agencies are contacting me, asking me if the prime has been paying on time. So that's been very helpful. And the description, all the description of what we do, that helps the procurement agent. So whoever's at, government agency or even corporate world, they all have a procurement agent. And so this gives them all the information they know to keep track of you and let them know what kind of work you do. So I would encourage everyone to have one.
So on your certifications, you have one through SBA, so that would be for federal projects, and that looks to be like a small business, certified small business and certified minority business. And you put your number there. Your DBE, can you describe what your DBE is?
That's disadvantaged business enterprise. And that's a federal certification, but it is recognized by some state agencies.
And then your SANDAG bench, I have never heard that.
SANDAG is a regional transportation planning agency for San Diego County, similar to the Kern cog. And the program they have is you can get certified and be on what they call a bench, just like, playing football. So you're all ready to go. So any of their contractors can just hire you on. You don't have to go through a process anymore. So that's been helpful. We've got 2 contracts from that where we were already on a bench. They just called us up and it was a short order to get us to work.
And then your Cal eProcure number. I think we might hear more of that later.
Yeah, Cal eProcure is the state agency. We're registered with them. And that is a listing of, I think, most of the state funded contracts that go out. But once you're set up on there, when bids come out, you can put a notice there that says, I'm interested in being a subcontractor. And so all the primes that may bid on that particular job will see that notice there. So it's worked for us. We just put in a bid yesterday through Cal eProcure.
So your NACE codes, do they pretty much transcribe with a 6-digit code about what you do over there under the what we do column?
Yes, they do. They're mainly project management and GIS mapping.
And your GIS mapping is basically done with aerial imaging using drones and conventional aircraft.
And GIS software to create layers and maps. And we use those tools to support project development.
Well, fantastic stuff, and really some good work here. And at the SBDC, we're very proud of Erica and the work that she does with contracting businesses. Her background on working on the high-speed rail project for a few years really opened a lot of knowledge and a lot of things that are happening for her. So we're great when we hear great things about her. So thank you.
Yeah, SBDC in general has been very helpful from the beginning, going back to 2016.
Okay, well, great. Well, Troy, one last question for you is going to be, and then we'll be letting you go. I know you got some meetings. You've traveled up to the central part of the San Joaquin Valley today. So we'll let you get on with your meetings. But one last thing is, what suggestions would you have for those wanting to start government contracting?
I would say do your homework. Research, the market, what your market proposed potential market is. Seek help like at SBDC, because some of these certifications and services, if you're not familiar with the way they work, it would be very difficult to try and do it on your own. But that was another thing. SBDC is very helpful at helping you figure that out. And then finally, I'd say, you want to be professional, and integrity is real important when you're doing government work. You got to pay attention to detail. That's very important. Those would be some of my recommendations, and have patience.
Great. Well, thank you so much. And Troy, it's always a pleasure. I look forward to talking to you soon. Very soon, I hope, actually. And thank you. And I'm really happy for all your success that you've had. Let's look and see if there are any questions. I don't see any very specific questions. I think we described a little bit about what your company is doing with the capabilities statement. So Troy, keep on keeping on, doing great. Great to have you here. Thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
Okay, so that's how you do it. That is how you do it right there. Okay, and we'll move on and actually now go to Chloe Doyle, and she serves as the Equity Manager and Small Business Liaison of District 6 of Caltrans. As the Equity Manager and the Small Business Liaison, she's responsible for overseeing the district's work in advancing racial and social equality by developing and implementing strategic directions across all divisions, with a focus on strengthening internal and external partnerships, fostering collaborative approaches. You guys can probably read just as well as I'm reading right now, so let me cut to the chase. Caltrans has a lot of money and a lot of resources right now. In California, we have a gas tax that's contributing to some wonderful highway construction and road work throughout the state. A lot of other transportation projects that are going on. We have a federal infrastructure bill that's going to provide even more work here in California. And that'll all come in handy for Chloe, as since she has built, a global perspective and worked in China, Germany, the UK on matters related to international human rights and public policy. Went to a fine institution, got her BA in psychology at Pepperdine, and also has her MA in human rights from the School of Public Policy at the University College London. I wonder where that is. Oh, it's in the United Kingdom. Born and raised in Fresno, spends her time horseback riding, goes for a walk with her 3 dogs, which I'm going to take a guess. You probably got one in China, and that would have been the pug. You got a Doberman in Germany and a English boxer in the UK. Maybe not. Chloe, great to have you here. Welcome, and thank you for joining us.
Oh, thank you.
All yours.
Okay, let's see. I will share my screen. And I think I've got it up. Thank you so much, Kelly. I appreciate you having me on today. Let's see. Hope everything's going okay. And thank you. Thank you. And thank you for Troy for talking today. It's so good to hear the success stories. Let's see. I'm going to talk a little bit about selling goods and services to Caltrans. Some of our procedures are very similar to what other state agencies do, and so a lot of our information can be transferred over if you'd like to work with the state in any capacity. I'll go on to, let's see, the next slide. I hope it's going on okay. Oops. I hope it's switched to this next one. And I've got my contact information on the next slide, and please feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or if I can be helpful. let's see, maybe I'll ask Maureen if it's gone on to the next one and if you can see me switching slides.
All we have is your beginning slide right now.
Okay, let's see. Apologies, thank you for taking the time. I'll pause the share.
Yeah, that works sometimes.
Yeah,
Yeah, and sometimes it doesn't advance the share on your arrow button on your computer, but if you hover
yes.
around the left bottom, an arrow
Got
button will pop up.
thank you.
So you get two
There it
choices.
is. Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Maureen. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It's there
I'll
now.
take all the help I can get. Again, I'm Chloe Doyle. I work for District 6 in Caltrans that covers Fresno, Kern, Kings, Madera, and Tulare counties. We have resources all over the state. So if you do business in a different county, absolutely no worries. You can still reach out to me and I will get you to the right local person to help you. I can also begin, if you want to begin your journey working with Caltrans or the state, you can reach out to me. Please feel free to write down my contact information, give me a call. I offer one-on-one meetings and we can tailor it to fit your business needs. So go ahead and reach out to me anytime. I'm happy to help. A little bit about Caltrans. Caltrans covers over 50,000 miles of state highway and freeway lanes. We work also on major intercity rail services and permit over 400 public use airports and heliports. There's quite a lot that Caltrans does. So much of our mission and goals is too big for Caltrans to take on its own. We work so much with cities and counties as well. So we rely on our partners to contract out a lot with construction, but so much more than just construction contracting. So there's probably a fit for you no matter what you sell or what services you can provide. Some people are usually pretty surprised on what Caltrans gets into, and so I'll go over today some of our highlights to talk about that Kelly has asked me to touch on. A lot about procurement, including goods and services from Caltrans that are maybe difficult or somewhat unusual that you wouldn't think that Caltrans procures. Some opportunities for non-traditional vendors, some non-construction contracts that you would be, outside of what you would normally think Caltrans would do. And then touch on a little bit about federal funding updates, since we do have that the bipartisan infrastructure bill that passed last November, and so much more funding is coming to California. So we'll look a little bit on what that looks like for Caltrans, specifically in the Central Valley. So moving on to the procurement overview, talking about goods and services that Caltrans finds difficult or unusual to procure. I'll start a little bit talking about procurement types, just a general overview. We really separate it into goods and commodities and then services, whether they're IT or non-IT. Caltrans buys all kinds of things. And so this is how we would separate them out, and each has a different unique procurement method. Something that Troy had talked about and Kelly touched on was Cal eProcure. That is California's online marketplace where all state agencies use a shared database to list what's coming up, what they buy, to put bids on there. It's a great resource. It's somewhat new, and so it's wonderful to be able to use a one-stop shop for working with the state. You can reach out to me if you have questions about getting your business registered on Cal eProcure, about working with your account once you are registered. That's how you get your certification if you qualify as a state certified small business or a disabled veteran business enterprise. It's all handled through Cal eProcure. You can go ahead and contact me. I'll help you walk you through it in our one-on-one meeting. We can open up your Cal eProcure account together and we can go through it, make sure that you've got the right NAICS codes and that you're getting all the opportunities sent to you that you want to see. So I'll talk a little bit about what the vast majority of the procurement at Caltrans is, and that's under $10,000. Procurement being purchasing of goods or services. And I'll talk a little bit about the CalCard program that Caltrans participates in. Essentially, we have a Visa card that we can use, that our purchasers use all throughout the state, and it's for goods or services that are under $10,000. If your business accepts Visa payment, then you can work with Caltrans. let's see, pretty much all of the purchases are fairly easy if the purchase can be determined to be fair and reasonable and the pricing. And I won't have time today to talk too much about the qualifications for fair and reasonable pricing, but please feel free to reach out to me if you do have any more questions on that. I'll include a little bit of some examples of the goods, quantities, and services that Caltrans does procure, some with the Cal card and some through different methods if it's over the 10,000. So you would think the typical ones would be, you know, construction supplies, printer paper, paint, batteries, office supplies, janitorial supplies. There's a complete list and that's available on our website. It'll be available in this presentation as well. You can find the link at the bottom of the screen. But maybe more to some of the unusual things that Caltrans might purchase. So much of what we have is publicly available. So any of the purchases that Caltrans has made within the last, this is the recent one, I pulled this up yesterday for Q2 in this current fiscal year. You can see that there's all kinds of things. This is just the beginning of the list. I have no idea exactly what Caltrans is doing purchasing saddles or mice or bees, but they all have a justification, pumpkin seeds, anything. So many things that you would not think that Caltrans purchases, but they do. And there's a whole complete list if you wanted to go through and see if your business qualifies or if Caltrans buys what you're selling. That list of recent purchases is publicly available. And you can go ahead and go through. It's just an Excel sheet that you can download and see how much had been purchased and when. So I would encourage you to take a look at it and see if it's something that your business sells. So in terms of difficult goods and services to procure, it really depends. It depends on what the buyers are looking for. It depends by the time of year, by the season. It really is, you know, it's so variable. And so something that Caltrans does do is host procurement fairs. I've got one coming up in Kern County specifically. It's an event that I'm co-hosting with my counterpart in District 9, Jessica Klemenek. And we are putting together a virtual procurement fair. We would invite you all to attend. Kelly or another individual from SBDC will be presenting on services offered by the SBDC. And so it's 2 weeks from today is our first morning session, and that's from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And then again on April 21st from 9 a.m. to 12 p.m. And you can register online and attend online. You'll hear from Caltrans purchasers on how they like to do their purchasing, what they've been looking for specifically in Kern County. You'll hear from purchasers up in our district office over in Bishop. And it's just an opportunity to hear from Caltrans, people who hold the Cal card and want to do business with your small business or local business. So it's my plug if you would like to attend. I also have a flyer for it. If you'd like some more information, I can provide that as well, and registration links. It's all online. I would encourage you to attend if you can. Either one of the days. You don't have to attend both, but both have different information if you would like to come to both. And so I would like to talk a little bit about contracting with Caltrans just briefly. There's so many different types of contracts, service contracts outside of construction. As you might know, Caltrans does quite a lot of construction and almost all of it is contracted out. You know, if you see, 99 being rebuilt, it's most likely with a contractor and rather than Caltrans employees out there. And so, but we do contract quite a lot outside of construction. Maybe something that I would like to highlight is the first type, which would be the service agreement. That's also under 10,000. It's a little bit different than just swiping the Visa card, but it still is very common to get a service agreement with Caltrans under 10,000, and then that can be recycled over and over. It's not doesn't have to be a one-time, one-off agreement. Maybe some examples of some service contracts. Very common is the architectural and engineering design, hazardous waste cleanup, equipment rentals, expert witnesses. There's a lot of consulting that's contracted out, and hazardous waste removal. That's one that coming up is going to get more and more additional funding, especially as it relates to encampment projects that Caltrans is taking on. So moving on just a little bit to opportunities for non-traditional vendor types. Caltrans sees small businesses as non-traditional, even though, you know, it's small businesses that run America. So in terms of what Caltrans sees as non-traditional vendors would be the certified small businesses, the disabled veteran business enterprise, and the disadvantaged business enterprises. I can help you with those certifications, so can SBDC, but they're highly encouraged. Caltrans offers a lot of opportunities if you are a certified firm or not, but truly there's been a lot of opportunities if you are certified within Caltrans. And for example, if you're a small business, there's a 25% goal. So on participating contracts, 25% of that money should be going to small businesses. Our spending should be going to small businesses, 5% to the disabled veteran business enterprise. And for federally funded projects, if there's even $1 of federal funds, there will be a DBE goal. And that just got increased as of last year to 22.2%. So there's always a push for Caltrans to work with our small or disadvantaged businesses. So please do reach out to me if you're interested, and we want to figure out if your business qualifies. Some more benefits I'll highlight quickly are the 5% bid preference for small businesses. It gives you a little bit of an advantage where if your bid comes in within a 5% range, Caltrans will be able to consider it versus other bids with a little bit of a preference. And I can go through that in detail. If you wanted to give me a call or give me an email later, I can go through that. There's also an incentive for the DBE. I wanted to highlight here about emergency contracts. Maybe this is your opportunity to work with Caltrans. In case of an emergency, you know, a landslide, mudslide, something where the road is damaged or a natural disaster has occurred, Caltrans will need to be quickly call on the list of emergency contractors, people ready to supply in the event of an emergency. And so there's a emergency contractors list and registry, and it all kind of got consolidated very recently. And so I would encourage you to reach out if you think that you would like to work with Caltrans in the event of an emergency. Another example of some of the goods or services that Caltrans might procure from that emergency registry would be anything related to base camp operations, and that's pretty comprehensive, but also temporary labor, traffic control, fencing, erosion control. So a great opportunity. Usually a lot of funding gets loosened up and is available. If you think that you can work with Caltrans in the event of an emergency, I would encourage you to reach out. We can go through getting you on that registry and getting you ready to go. Touching now on the federal funding update, and that's from the IDJA, the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, known by the $1.2 trillion attached to it. There's so much new funding that has not been seen here before. I've included a list on the breakdown of the funding, but in the next slide, I'll go through what that kind of means for California. It's still, you know, the details are being worked out, but California is expected to receive so much new funding. Specifically, I wanted to highlight the funding for expanding the electric vehicle charging network throughout California. I think that the Central Valley will receive a lot of that funding. So that's where it's needed the most to expand the EV infrastructure, but also for broadband coverage across the state. That's a new incentive that's being pushed. It's called the Broadband Middle Mile Network, and that is really to get broadband and internet access to our rural areas in California that still lack that internet access. And so that's being charged with Caltrans to work together and to run that broadband along state highways to get that to the rural areas. And so more funding is coming there. It's hard to know exactly what the funding will look like for Caltrans. We haven't gotten a full understanding of how much money we're getting and how much we can use at our discretion. But I would love to come back once I figure that out, should be within this year, and I'm able to see exactly what we've got ready to be offered. I would love to come and speak at another webinar if Kelly would have me in the future to discuss in depth what Caltrans is able to offer with this additional funding. I would love for our Central Valley to be able to receive quite a lot of it and for it to go and stay locally. So hopefully some more updates to come on that, some really good news. But yeah, I think our Central Valley will look a lot different in the coming years with this increased funding. So I haven't been watching the chat, but if we do have any questions, I'd love to talk through them and see how I can help. And just thank you again for having me on today. Please do take my contact information, reach out, call, let me know what I can do for you. And thank you again, Kelly.
That was fantastic. Thank you, Chloe. And of course you can come back, and I like getting into the details about what you have money to spend and who we can find to spend it on. So that was interesting to see. I kind of was running my little calculator, and the infrastructure bill alone seems to be $40 billion coming to California for infrastructure purposes. So hopefully you get a good share of that. And a lot of the projects going beyond just, you know, a traffic light here and an extra lane of highway here. But, you know, anytime if you want me to give you my preferred project, which can you put another lane, another eastbound lane on Highway 58 from Bakersfield to Tehachapi?
Ooh, I'm writing it down.
Write it down. It's literally, I think, the most dangerous state highway in Kern County. And that is because there's so many trucks that come out of the port of LA and other areas that go east on 58, and there's not a truck lane as you proceed up to 4,000 feet in elevation. So
Okay.
there, now you have my preferred project.
Okay.
But yeah, we'd love to have you back.
Yes.
And we do have some questions. I got to ask my question first because this came up and I didn't know the answer. And so I've waited patiently until I had somebody who could answer this for me. And I've heard both the phrases contracting and procurement used, and oftentimes they're used interchangeably, but I believe that there's a difference between contracting and procuring or procurement. Could you help me out with that a little bit?
Yes, and they are used interchangeably. You know, you can procure a contract as sometimes used, but in general, procurement would be more of the purchasing, swiping that Visa card, that Cal card, and contracting would be a written agreement where a service is being provided over a set amount of time with payment to come later. Troy did mention about sometimes payment comes later when you're working with the state or with the federal government. And I did want to mention just about Caltrans is aware that with small businesses, that is so difficult to wait around. Sometimes if you've done your section of the project, if you're a subcontractor, and then you're waiting for the contract to be finished, the whole project to be finished before you are able to be paid, even if you worked months and months and months ago. And so there are some resources that Caltrans has through the Prompt Payment Act to try to get the money to our small businesses in the meantime, so that you're not waiting and have to be left out, you know, for so long without payment, even after you've finished. But to answer your question, just in general, procurement more about purchasing goods or commodities, and the contracting side more of a written agreement with payment coming later.
Okay, makes sense. So if you have a question for Chloe, go to the Q&A box. Our first question is, with the increased focus nationwide on inclusion and equity, has Caltrans enhanced its opportunities for those who fall within that designation? And can you please provide some examples if you have time?
Yes, absolutely. I think this is a wonderful question. So I've talked a lot about small business and my role as the small business liaison, but underneath me is the equity program. And so that is a brand new program that I am in charge of on figuring out exactly how we are able to root equity, social equity, racial equity, focusing on our underserved communities here in the Central Valley how can we make sure that they're not being left behind in every single aspect of what Caltrans does, planning projects or maintaining the roadways, getting funding to where we need it. And so there's been so much, just like even as part of the IJA package there was a provision to set up a equity office to look specifically at equity issues in transportation funding. And so it's a whole momentum sweep that's coming through, and I'm honored to be able to, I've been here just about 6 months, to be part of the forefront of pushing on what transportation equity looks like here in the Central Valley. I've been working a lot with our transportation planners and community engagement. I think we just had a equity listening session that was held from members of the community in Kern County specifically, to be able to come and you know, voice their opinions and tell us their struggles about what's been going on for them in Kern County. Highway 58 did come up as an issue in the past. Some issues about over in chapter. So there's been some increased attention, and that's also why I decided to have the procurement fair just look specifically at Kern County. I think Kern County has been a little bit, you know, left out, maybe from a Caltrans perspective. And so I wanted to make sure that we can get some increased attention to Kern County from Caltrans to see if we can get some more money come into small businesses, even if it's just in a small way of getting under $10,000 procurements done. But please do, if you can come to that procurement fair, please come. And if you'd like to reach out to me further, if you have any ideas that you would like to raise or issues or topics that you'd like to bring up, I'm all ears, so please do reach out.
And we're proud to be a co-sponsor of your procurement fair. I heard it's going to be better on the 21st than the 20th.
That is, well, you're presenting.
It's a joke. Well, I mean, you can't compete with Webinar Wednesday on April 20th.
That's true. That's true.
Hey, who's your counterpart in the Northern San Joaquin Valley in the Modesto and Stockton areas?
Yes, so for a long time, it was Bob Adams. He recently moved to a new position, and so they're hiring back behind him. It'll be Bill Lavelle is taking over for him for a little while until they hire his permanent replacement. But I can send out, maybe I can drop it in the chat. I know that we're almost done. Go ahead and reach out to me. You've got my contact information, and I will help route you to the right person. In the meantime, hopefully I can answer your question or at least know a little bit more. Mine only goes up to Madera County, but still, I hope I can be helpful. So reach out to me in the meantime. The position's currently vacant.
Well, that intrigues me because so the Northern San Joaquin Valley, essentially Stockton, Modesto area, what district are they in? And also, they headquartered in Stockton.
Yeah, that is District 10. I know that the numbering system doesn't quite go in order. We do start District 1 at the top of California, but it gets a little jumbled here in Central California. So I'm in District 6, right above us is District 10. District 9 is over there in Bishop and wraps around down, similar to where your area is for the SBDC.
Yeah, we get District 9, we get all of Mono, Inyo, and Eastern Kern counties. So
Yeah.
and we get you in District 6. So okay, well, that's fascinating. Okay, so that takes care of our Q&A box. Let me now go to the chat box and see if we have any questions in there. And let's see, I see Maureen. Hello, Nick. Maureen has put in some great information. Hello to everybody. Kind of a late hello because it's almost goodbye, but better late than never, right? So there's some grants that we talked about earlier and some of the programs that we had talked about. And also Chloe's contact information is there. And let's see, any questions? How important is knowing a foreign language contracting with Caltrans?
Oh, wow. We do have translation services. So this is a little bit different than the question, but if you know a company or if your company or some of your employees For example, if they only speak Spanish, that's absolutely okay. The equity listening session that I mentioned earlier, it was held entirely in Spanish. It had an English translation, but we do all the best that we can do to make language not a barrier with working for the state. There are so many languages spoken within California, and this state is for every language. So it hopefully should not be too much of a barrier at all. It is a priority to eliminate language as a barrier.
Okay, well, fantastic. Great job. Let's wrap it up. Run a couple minutes long. But Chloe, thanks so much for joining us. Great information, great opportunities available to generate greater sales for a lot of people who don't actually contract with the government or procure with the government, but have that opportunity. So we'll look forward to having you back later on. We start talking about some of the other issues that are coming up. And so we are going to wrap things up and get out of here. We do have another program we could tell you about real quick that's going to be coming. It's basically 10 hours to the Central California region. We'll talk about that as we get closer, but it'll include bonding, insurance, understanding contracts, capital marketing, and supplier diversity. And this is actually a program that is being ran out of the SBDC in San Diego at this time, and that San Diego has a very strong Procurement Technical Assistance Center headed by, I believe, Cheryl Brown, and she's been teaching this class. So we'll work on doing that to you, work on that. Also, I'd like to thank our sponsors that make all this helpful. We'll be back again next week on the 13th with Claudia Newcorn. And so for Troy Hightower and Chloe Doyle and Kelly Bearden, we'll be back soon. Thank you, everybody, for joining us. Take care, everybody, and have a great day. Bye-bye now.